So, first of all,
Justine.
thank you so much for sitting down
pleasure.
with us. We know how busy you are.
Absolute pleasure.
Really appreciate the time. I'm going to kick off first with a question about trust and integrity, because of the many, many hundreds of questions we got on Mumsnet, about half were on this subject.
Yes.
So, as you know, I'm going to ask user questions to you.
Yes.
So here we go. This is a pretty typical question that sums up the mood on Mumsnet, I'd say, from a user who goes by the name of Tim Booth's Eyes. She'd like to know, why should we believe anything you say when it has been proven you're a habitual liar?
Well, first of all, don't agree with the conclusion that Tim, the questioner asked, but or the premise of the question. But look, I think the best way for me to answer that is to say, look at what I get on and deliver, and what I say I'm going to deliver, and that's what I'm in politics to do, to try to make life better for people if I possibly can. I'm there to try to get the country. I was elected at a particularly difficult time in politics to get some tough things done. Things then became, if anything, even more difficult because of the pandemic. But if you look at what we're doing, we're getting on and delivering. And I would say, look at getting many more police out on the streets to make our streets safer. We've already got about 13,000 more. Neighbourhood crime down substantially. Look at what we've done with our NHS, which I made a big thing about.
So I think we're going to come on.
My answer about trust is people throw all sorts of accusations at me about all sorts of things. Ever since I drove around with a sign on a bus, and they have all sorts of reasons for saying that. But I think you just got to look at the record of what I deliver.
Okay, thank you. On a related issue, Che Guevara's hamster asks, why have you removed the Nolan principles, namely integrity, objectivity, accountability, transparency, honesty and leadership in the public interest from the foreword of the ministerial code?
But Justine, we have. I just checked with it. There's still a clear reference at the top of the ministerial code to the 7 principles of public life, the 7 Nolan principles that you've just mentioned.
Okay, so you don't accept, because another user asked, why should ministers be any less accountable than civil?
No, they should. I know. I think ministers should be, if anything, should be more accountable, and I think ministers should, step up and take responsibility. Civil servants are there to give advice. Ministers, the whole point of our system is that there's a difference between ministers and civil servants, and we've got to carry the can and
okay, so then,
take the blame.
Which moves us to Partygate. Obviously, we had a lot of questions about Partygate.
Yeah.
Wollstonecraft asks, as a teacher, I wollstonecraft lose my job if I broke the law. Why doesn't the same apply to the Prime Minister?
Well, I've just got to say to Wollstonecraft that, again, I apologise very much for what happened, but just to remind her of what I did, and I think if people look at the event in question, it felt to me like a work event. I was there for a very short period of time in the Cabinet Office at my desk, I was very, very surprised and taken aback to get an FPM, but of course I paid it, and I think that why am I still here? I'm still here because we've got huge pressures economically. We've got to get on and we've got the biggest war in Europe for 80 years. And we've got a massive agenda to deliver, which I was elected to deliver. Yeah. And I thought about all these questions a lot, as you can imagine. And I just cannot see how actually it would be responsible right now, given everything that is going on, simply to abandon the project on which I embarked
I get that,
to
but
level up.
a lot of our
but
users will say if you've lost the trust of the people and your government has lost the trust, then you can't possibly be an effective prime minister.
Well, I mean, let's see about that. And I think that the challenge is, and yeah, I'm not going to deny that the whole thing hasn't been a totally, miserable experience for people in government, and we've got to learn from it, and we've got to understand the mistakes that we made, and we've got to move forward. We were asking people, we had a pandemic where the only tools we had for quite a long period were non-pharmaceutical intervention. The only thing we could do was to try to help persuade people to restrict their types of behaviour. And of course, I can totally see how infuriating it is to think that people like me were not fulfilling the letter of the rules ourselves. I totally understand that. All I can enter in mitigation is what I said just now about the event for which I received the FPN, and then on the other events that I was at. I genuinely believed that what I was doing, and I know people may think this is not good enough, but what I thought I was doing was saying goodbye briefly to hardworking staff who had really been working their they're doing their best to help people during the pandemic. So that was what was going on.
So another question, it's getting weird. Can you honestly say it's more important to hold leaving drinks for a colleague who you could hold an event for after restrictions loosened than it was for the rest of the country to say goodbye to loved ones at funerals?
No, and I understand so much how that questioner feels about the restrictions. All I can say is that everybody who is here, and we're in the building where everybody was working blindingly hard, and they were all under the rules meant to be here. They had the exemption for work purposes, and what I thought I was doing, and actually for most of these things that was what the investigation concluded. What I thought I was doing was simply doing what is right for a leader in in any circumstances, and that's to thank people for their service. And if you don't do that, people feel underappreciated and undermotivated. This was a time when we had to keep morale high, and the whole place was under a huge amount of pressure. Anyway, I make these points in explanation and but not to minimise what I know is people's sense of that we got it wrong and that we should have done better. I totally understand that.
Okay, so it won't surprise you to know that many people on Mumsnet are affected by the cost of living crisis. The Wichita linesman asks, what steps do you personally take to ensure that you're as educated as possible about the experience of less well-off families? Matthew Paris famously tried to live on benefits for a short time and struggled. How can we trust you to make the right decisions when you seem so detached from the everyday struggles of millions?
I understand exactly why that person feels as they do. All I can say is that I try as much as I can to talk to my constituents. I'm after all still
another user says you don't do surgeries anymore, and she's one of your constituents.
Well, I try to talk to my constituents as much as I can, and I do surgeries actually, but so I don't know. I'll happily see her as soon as I can. Pass that down the line. But I think, Justine, the answer to this is I recognise that the country is going through a tough time economically because of what happened in COVID. I think we can come out of it very strongly. And in the meantime, the government is going to have to use a lot of fiscal firepower that we've built up as a result of the tough decisions that we took. Tell people, £15 billion worth of support. That's £1,200 for 8 million of the most vulnerable households. £1,200 for 8 million of the most vulnerable households. £400 for everybody to help with the cost of heating. This is a big intervention. It's only possible because we have the economic strength to do it. On top of that, we're also helping people by increasing the household support fund, which goes to local councils. So that's a £1.5 billion fund now, as well as a stream of other things that we're doing.
Well, can we talk about one of those perhaps which
Yes.
your government hasn't as yet addressed, which is the cost of childcare, which of course
Yes.
a big concern for Mumsnet.
Yeah.
Username 357. The cost of childcare in the UK is the second highest in Europe. There is a lot of evidence to show that subsidising childcare so it's actually affordable would lead to many more women working more hours. And the
I
actual
totally buy this.
Yeah.
I agree with this
so
argument.
what's the government going to do?
So we're spending about £6 billion on childcare already, but there are things that aren't working right. And so, for instance, as I'm sure Mumsnet readers, viewers know, there's an allowance of £2,000. There's a grant of £2,000 for households with £100,000 income or less, and the take up for this is disappointingly low.
Yes.
About a million people.
You should advertise it a bit more.
We can advertise a bit more. Well, I've got another idea there. About a million people don't take it up. A million people who are eligible don't take it up, and that's crazy because I think you're right. If parents had better, more confident access to childcare, it would have a massive benefit for the economy. What you need to do, we're supporting people on universal credit, as you know. People who are on benefits have 85% of their childcare costs paid. I'm looking at a few things. One of them is to try and make it easier to be a childminder. So I think childminders can make a huge difference. I think there's a difference between some of the provision that we have, and childminders, I think, offer a really good way forward if we made it easier for people to register as childminders. So we're looking at that. But the other thing is, can we be more flexible in the way that you spend your entitlement to childcare? And are there things that you and I might remember from our days in North London? Things like tumble tots or dance round or little kickers or whatever these things are that you can do that currently you can't use childcare funding for, but maybe you should be able to do in the future. So we're looking to try to encourage take up by having more flexibility, and so we're also looking at are there things we can do to make childcare more affordable generally, and the way the whole thing works.
Okay, so
but the point I'm trying to make is that there already is,
there is some funding. It's very hard to spend it. However,
there's a lot of funding, but
very patchy provision. A lot of the nurseries are going bust. But I'm going to move on because we want to cover more ground. Stage rage. Are you a do as I do or a do as I say kind of dad?
Are you talking about my parenting
your
skills?
Parenting skills?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to. I'm doing a lot. All I would say is that I'm doing a lot at the moment, Justine. And I want you to. I say that without any inhibition or fear of contradiction.
A lot of bath time.
I am doing. I can tell you, I've changed a lot of nappies recently.
And what's your favourite young child's book? Oh well, no, not nappy. I don't really want to know.
I can tell you, I'm very fast, by the way.
What about book? What are bedtime stories?
I like the I like the ones I used to like, to be honest. I used to call it Dr. Seuss, which it's Dr. Seuss.
Okay.
As people call it.
So men never get asked this question.
This was no time for playing. This was no time for fun. This was
lovely.
no time for games.
But it is time for another question.
There was work to be done.
So which is
our motto in number 10.
How do you balance being? Men never get asked this, and
Yes.
I wonder what you think about that. But how do you balance being a parent with such a demanding career?
How do I do it? I think the more you put in, the more you get out. How about that as an answer? So you've got to you've got to Carrie obviously does more than I do. I'm not going to conceal that fact from you. She does far more than I do. But I think if you really sat her down and interrogated her, she would admit that I do quite a lot too.
Okay. What's the last lie you told from TTA Red Dust?
It certainly wasn't the answer to the last question, and I want you to know that I direct TTA
Red Dust
back to my earlier answer. I try to be as committed as I can to delivering everything I've said that I'm going to do, and that is what I think is crucial. And when people have thrown all sorts of stuff at me and tried to undermine what I'm trying to do, and I think when you actually look at the detail of their accusations, they tend to dissolve. People said it wasn't £350 million a week, that this was the great thing that I made up. Actually, this year it would have been considerably more than £350 million a week. So the statistic was wrong, but it turned out, but it was an underestimate. I would say to her, look at what we do and look at what I try to do.
Okay, last question.
Yes.
It's on Northern Ireland from Chandelier. Do you have any clue what will happen if you try to impose a border between Ireland and Northern Ireland? Do you even realise that you've jeopardised peace in Northern Ireland with your disingenuous protocol? Do you even care?
So I think that the protocol is certainly not functioning well, and but the last thing we want to have is a border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and that is simply not going to happen. All that we're trying to do is to get rid of some pretty pointless and bureaucratic checks on stuff that's going from GB to Northern Ireland. And these checks are, what they're doing is they're undermining the confidence of one community in Northern Ireland, the Unionist community, in the arrangements that we have. And so the Good Friday Agreement depends on balance. It depends on both communities, both traditions in Northern Ireland feeling they're being looked after. Now, when I did the protocol, I negotiated it. The problem is that I thought that it would be implemented with common sense and pragmatism, because the ultimate arbiter of how to make it work, unfortunately, is the EU. And I just think what is needed is more pragmatism and less theology. Because at the moment, what you've got is one community in Northern Ireland, the Unionist / Loyalist community, feeling that there's a border down the Irish Sea, an east-west border, and that is inflaming their sentiment. They won't go back into government in Northern Ireland unless we fix it. So for me, the priority is to fix the protocol and get the Good Friday Agreement institutions up and running again. That's what needs to happen, and that's the best thing for Northern Ireland. Best thing for Northern Ireland and for the whole of the country is for politicians to be getting on with the job, focusing on the economy, the things matter to them.
Okay, and it wouldn't be a Mumsnet interview if I didn't ask you favourite biscuit.
Yeah, I know. Well, I have the benefit of having an interview by you before, Justine, on this question, and I know that many years ago, you or your agents asked me, and I think I said a chocolate digestive biscuit. I'm not going. I'm
you did, but I was wondering whether you preferred cake now.
I'm going to stick to that. The cake. There was. I did not eat a cake. If you're talking satirically about that miserable event, whose picture appeared on the front pages, no cake was consumed by me. I can tell you. Okay. I can tell you that much. But look, chocolate digestive biscuit, same answer as last time.
Very consistent.
Like the chocolate digestive biscuit, because it's It's the chocolate taste explosion that lures you to have the
I think you used
whole meal
even more
nourishment.
flowery descriptions last time.
It was something like that. The
Thank
whole,
you.
and then you keep going down the packet. That was my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.